Okay, today we are going to share 道德经. Let's share a brief introduction of 道德经. I quote this from Wikipedia. In Wikipedia, well, very brief introduction. Said the 道德经, also known as 老子. They translate 老子. Sometimes they translate 老祖 or 老子. So originally, 道德经was not the name for this sutra. The philosopher, the ancient philosopher, they gave this sutra a name directly called 老子. And later philosopher, they changed the name into 道德经. Okay, and the author 老子 was a philosopher back in to 6th century BC, so about 2600 years ago. And 道德经, along with 庄子, 老庄, is the fundamental text for philosophical Taoism. Here, I use philosophical Taoism because in religious Taoism, probably 老庄 is not so important. You know, in Taiwan, the Taoism is a totally different story from philosophical Taoism. But in philosophical Taoism, 老庄 always link together. And also the concept, the philosophy in 道德经 also influenced in many schools of Chinese philosophy, including Confucianism and Buddhism. And why 道德经 influenced Confucianism? Because we have learned that in Tao community that Lao Tzu was the teacher of Kongzi. Lao Tzu was Confucius' teacher. So we learned that Confucius 问礼于老子. So 道德经 influenced Confucianism. And why it influenced Buddhism? Because when Buddhism was first introduced into China, and the interpretation mostly used a lot of Taoist words, so also influenced Buddhism in China, and also influenced many artists, including poets, painters, calligraphers, and many others. They use 道德经 as a source of inspiration, and its influence even spread widely outside of East Asia. And it is among the most translated works in world literature. It is said that only second to the Bible. And 道德经 has been translated into Western languages over 250 times, mostly to English and less to German and French. But in my sharing, the translation I use is not specific to a certain version. I just take all the version. I mean, I read some version as my reference, and mostly I change them a lot. Well, not a lot, but some to be in accordance with our understanding of Tao. I change them a lot. Okay, and actually, I'm not interested in history, in the historical background. I cannot wait to dive into the philosophy of Lao Tzu, because there is a saying in our Tao community, 事理则进，非理则退. So when we read scripture, when we read a holy revelation, if we find that the words resonates with our true nature, and the verse make us feel touched, inspired, and resonate. We have some kind of resonation inside. Then we know that it is in accordance with the truth. So every word of 道德经, I have that feeling. It really resonates with our true nature. So about the history is not important. We cannot wait to go directly into the content of 道德经. You know, Lao Tzu was a legendary philosopher because Confucius once described Lao Tzu as 神龙见首不见尾. It means Lao Tzu, the philosophy is so profound, just like a mysterious dragon. a dragon that we can see the dragon's head, but we cannot see the dragon's tail. So it's so profound. And 道德经, all of 道德经 has 5,162 Mandarin words, Chinese words in 81 chapters. And briefly, 道 means the way, the original essence of our true nature. And 德, because we know Dao is invisible, Dao is intangible. So we cannot see Dao, we cannot touch Dao, but we can see how a person, a virtual person, how he speaks, how he acts, and his behavior, his influence. We can feel that. We can be touched. So virtue is something that we can feel, that can touch us. So virtue is the manifestation of Dao, of true nature. So 道德经 in this book, Lao Tzu talk about Dao, explain Dao, and talk about De a lot. And Jing means sutra, or in Chinese, there is explanation. 经者静也, 经者静也 means Jing is a path, and this path is constant, so-called 经常不变, means this path remains constant. So 道德经, we can say that the name of 道德经, the meaning of the name of the sutra is the sutra which tells us how to restore our true nature and cultivate our virtues. Or we can say that 道德经 is the path that leads us to restoring our true nature and cultivating our virtues. Okay, that's the brief introduction of 道德经. Let's go directly to chapter 1. Chapter 1, the cover slide of this chapter, I use this picture. This picture shows us deep clouds. It was a picture I took on the airplane. And why I use this picture of deep clouds, because in this chapter, we are going to talk about the essence of Dao. The essence of Dao, which means Dao 的本体. And the essence of Dao is actually inexplainable, cannot be explained. Because when we want to explain something, we need to use words and languages. And words and languages came into being way after the heaven and earth were created. After the creation of the universe and everything and the human being, and then humans created words and languages. So how can we from the point of view of creations and to describe the creator? It's impossible. That's why Tao is inexplainable. But all the saints and sages, under the condition of being unable to explain Tao, but they have to explain it. Why? Because all the saints and sages, they want to help all the sentient beings to restore their true nature, to go back to their original spiritual origin. So in this case, it is very profound, inexplainable, but they need to explain. So I use this photo of deep clouds. There's a poem in ancient China. I'm wondering if you have read this poem or not. A verse goes like this: 云深不知处, which means somewhere in the deep clouds, but you don't know where, but you know it is somewhere in there, somewhere in the deep clouds. So it is a very good concept to describe something so profound, so deep, and that cannot be felt, cannot be touched by our 6 senses. But that's something that is Tao, cannot be felt, cannot be touched, so profound, but it is not far away. It is not far away. It is actually inherent within each and every one of us. And actually, we cannot leave Tao for a single instant. That's why Confucius said, 道也者，不可虚于离也. We cannot leave Tao for a single instant. However, human beings always tend to emphasize on the outside. Human beings tend to emphasize on what our 6 senses can touch. They tend to stick to 六根可以接触到的环境啊。So since they tend to emphasize on the environment that can be touched by their 6 senses, so they are easily cheated by the superficial appearances. And that's why the sentient beings are far away from their origin, from their original heart, and they cling to the surface appearances. So sentient beings appears to be shallow, to be very shallow, not profound. And the characteristics of being shallow are, first, being restless, being unstable, and then their minds are easily to be distracted. Their minds are easily to be disturbed, and their minds are easily to be agitated. So when a person's mind is agitated, no matter this person is going to deal with people or is going to deal with things, no matter 做人做事, he will not be successful if his mind is agitated, is disturbed. So Tao cultivation, even we don't talk about 超生了死, even we don't talk about transcend the cycle of birth and death, even we just want to be a better version of ourselves, even we just want to have a better tomorrow, we need to find a way to have a good life. And to have a good life, we need to have a good heart. And a good heart must be a stable heart. If a heart is agitated, is restless, is unstable, then it cannot be a good heart. So the best way to stabilize our mind is to find the origin of our heart, 就找到自己的本心呢, and that means to receive Tao. So even though we don't talk about transcend the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, actually everyone needs to find their true self, need to receive Tao in order to have a better life. So chapter 1 is going to talk about something very profound, something very mysterious. So I use this photo of deep clouds to describe somewhere in the deep clouds, very profound, very mysterious, yet inherent within each and every one of us. Let's go to the first verse of chapter 1. 道可道，非常道. It's a very familiar verse. And that means Tao cannot be explained by using words and languages, because Tao has been existing since before the universe was created. And after the universe was created, Tao is the energy source for everything to move on and on. So Tao is intangible, inaudible, and invisible. So we have difficulty using words to describe something intangible, inaudible, invisible. But human beings still insist on using certain language or using many different ways to describe Tao. So Lao Tzu reminds us, Tao expressed by language or words is not the true face of Tao. Because because Tao has been existing before any languages and words was born. So let's take a river for example. The second longest river in China is Yellow River. Okay, and we know that Yellow River acquired this name because of its muddy water. And when the river water flows downstream, it carried a lot of soil, and that's why it becomes muddy. So when people look at the lower course water of Yellow River, people cannot imagine its upper course or even the source of Yellow River. We know that Yellow River's source is in Bayan Kelang Mountain in Qinghai province. And I've learned that actually Yellow River's source was and is from two lakes up in the high mountain, Bayan Kelang Mountain. And the lake water are crystal clear all year round. So Yellow River is noted for its muddy water, but we cannot imagine that its source is crystal clear. So the same, language and words are just like if we take Tao as the Tao created the universe and everything and a human being, and then we have words and languages. It's just like a Yellow River. The origin is crystal clear, and language and words is just like the muddy water in lower course. So no language, no word is sufficient, is good enough to describe Tao. And that is why Lao Tzu said, 道可道, 非常道. The Tao described by words or languages is not the true face of Tao. And let's take this table for example. If we have a chance to see this table in person, then we know the carved pattern and the design of the table. But if we have no chance to see it and we really want to know how the table look like, we want someone to draw an image of the table or even take a picture, take a photo of the table and show us. No matter how articulated or how detailed the picture show the design, the pattern of the table, still we cannot say that after looking at the picture that we said that, oh, I have seen the table. Because the picture, the photo is not the table itself. Let's take traveling as an example. Before we go on a trip, we may now we may go search the internet, but in the past we may read a travel book. A travel book is a book. In the content of the book, the content will describe the destination, the scenic destination, the culture, the people, the food, the beautiful scenery. So after reading the travel book, we wouldn't say that, oh, I have read the travel book and then I know everything about the destination, that I don't have to take a trip there. We wouldn't say that. On the contrary, we will say, now I've read this travel book. It is very interesting. I really want to visit in person. See, we wouldn't say that, oh, I have read the book, so I don't have to go there. The more we feel that it is interesting, the more we want to go. The same. Cultivating Tao is the same. No matter how many lectures we have attended, no matter how many scriptures we have read, and we wouldn't say that after attending so many lectures, after accumulating so much Tao knowledge that we have attained Buddhahood. We wouldn't say that. We would say, the more I understand the depth of Tao, the more that we understand that we have a long way to go. The more we understand, the more humble we will be. Because the knowledge cannot replace the enlightenment. And this slide is talking about the conflict between religions. We know the founders of the world's great religions, like Jesus Christ, like Shakyamuni Buddha, like Confucius, they never said that they wanted to create, they never said that they wanted to establish a certain religion. They never said that. They just transmit Tao, they just spread the truth of life by the command of Heavenly Mother, by the command of God. And because Tao, or the absolute truth, is invisible, is inexplainable, but they have to explain. So after transmitting Tao, they need to educate, they need to teach the sentient beings how to cultivate. And in their teaching, they use a lot of metaphors. So they need to tell stories. And then what will be the material of the story? Those stories must be from sentient beings' experiences. Those stories must be in accordance with the historical background, the geographical background, the cultural background of their audiences, right? So they need to use their audience's language to explain what the inexplainable Tao is. So Jesus Christ and Shakyamuni Buddha, their words, their teachings superficially must be different because they taught in different area to different audiences at different times. But in depth, the profound meaning, the unexplainable truth, the inaudible, intangible, invisible truth is the same. And as the great sages passed by, their transmission of Tao stopped. And what they have left are words, and words later become scriptures. And what they have left are their rituals, and the rituals become religions. So the followers, the believers in later generations, in general, people are self-centered. They always think they are right and others are wrong. They always think their truth is the absolute and others are, well, it is optional, okay? And besides, their sages taught differently. Shakyamuni Buddha and Jesus and Confucius live in different areas and different times, so using different ways to explain Tao. So apparently the religious words, scriptures look differently, and because of the self-centeredness of people, so that's why, as a result, disagreement and conflicts occur between religions. So to solve this problem, Shakyamuni Buddha already knew that very, very well before all this happened. So Shakyamuni Buddha once said, I have preached the truths of the universe, which means Tao, for 49 years. But actually, I haven't said a single word on Tao. on the truth. If you said I have lectured Tao to people, then you have dishonored my reputation. So Shakyamuni Buddha directly tells us Tao cannot be explained. And what can be explained, what can be said, is not Tao itself. But it is very important that we should not underestimate. Up to now, we may think, oh, Tao cannot be explained, so all the words, all the scriptures, all the verses are of no importance because those are not the true face of Tao. If we think, if we look at the scriptures in this way, then we are neglecting, we are underestimating it. Never underestimate, neglect the sutra, the scriptures, because all the words, all the verses have very strong divine power, which can connect us to Buddhas, to great saints and sages. It's just that we cannot stop there. We cannot stop at the words. We need to go higher. For example, like we are going into a building, and our destination is on the fifth floor, fifth floor. And to go to fifth floor, we cannot skip fourth floor. Imagine there is no elevator. We need to take the stairs. So we cannot skip fourth floor, but our destination is on fifth floor. So when we reach fourth floor, we need to go higher. Just like a poem said, 欲穷千里目，更上一层楼. We need to go higher, but we cannot look down upon fourth floor. So that's why we are learning 道德经 word for word, verse for verse, chapter for chapter. And actually, I strongly recommend that we recite the sutra in Mandarin and recite it over and over again and fluently, and we will feel peace. And probably you will be inspired by Lao Tzu's ancient wisdom. So the conclusion of this 道可道非常道, we can say that the conclusion may be Lao Tzu wants us to know that knowledge is not equal to enlightenment, but we never ignore, never neglect the power of sutra, the power of scripture. If we think knowledge, Tao knowledge, scripture knowledge is not equal to enlightenment, and then we neglect the power of sutra, then we can say that we are 执着玩空, 又是执空, we cling to nothingness. So Tao cultivation is 中庸. We don't cling to the words, we don't cling to nothingness. We learn the words, learn the verses, and practice it, and then we'll reach the ultimate enlightenment. Okay, so this is my insight on the first verse, 道可道非常道. So therefore, if we want to know what Tao really is, we need to go higher. We read the words and then we practice, and then we can experience Tao. Okay, the second verse, 名可名非常名. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Okay, when the world developed into many things, and then those things can be seen and touched, and human being can experience these things through our six senses. And then human beings start to name these things, to give all things their name. But we need to understand that The name, no name in our knowledge is the eternal name. Because we have different languages, like you can see here, grapefruit. In English, the name is grapefruit for this fruit, but in Mandarin, we say 葡萄柚. So different languages give the same thing, different names, but sometimes the same language, but used in different area or in different country, they give the same thing, different name. Like potato, in English, potato. In Taiwan, we use Mandarin, but we say potato, we say 马铃薯, right? But in China, they say 土豆. But 土豆 in Taiwan, we refer to 土豆, we refer to peanut. Peanut. In Taiwanese, we say 头豆. We refer to peanut. But in Mandarin, in China, peanut, they say 花生. So even the same language, but different area, we give the same thing, different names. So no name in our knowledge is the eternal name, okay? And because the world is impermanent, everything is evolving and everything is disappearing too. So like when a person dies, his name must be removed from the record book in the government office, right? Or when a species become extinguished, then the status of the species is no longer eternal, no longer important at all, like the dinosaur. Nowadays, we don't have to be afraid of the dinosaur, because it is no longer important. It is history. It is extinguished. And like a general manager in a great company, when he retired, the name general manager will be forever removed from his business card, because he is no longer general manager anymore. So the name is, no name is eternal. Okay, that's the basic meaning of 名可名,非常名. So up to now, we know all names are impermanent. So all this name, not only the name to a specific object or specific person, but also we can understand that the name might refer to the expression of Tao, the description about Tao, the expression about Tao. So all the expressions about Tao, the description about Tao are all convenient way to explain, convenient explanation. Like how Shakyamuni Buddha explained the absolute truth, how Lao Tzu explained the eternal Tao, how Jesus explained the word. All those explanations are just convenient way, easy for people to understand. So it's so-called 因时因地因人, 方便. So since they are convenient ways to convenient explanation, so they are not eternal. Okay. So the next verse is 无明天地之始. So therefore, since all names are temporary, no names are eternal. So therefore, the only true origin of the universe must be something without a name, because the true origin is eternal. Because at that time, before the creation of the universe, at that time, there was no human beings, there was no human consciousness to give that situation a name. But in Tao Te Ching, we are not studying cosmology. We are not studying the science of the origin and the development of the universe. We are not studying science. We are studying philosophy. So studying scripture the only purpose of studying scripture would be to help us to return to our origin, to help us restore our true nature. So for this verse, 无名天地之始, we don't look at the great universe. Let's look at the smaller universe. The smaller universe, every human being is a small universe. Every human being is a small universe. Once our spirit from heaven, once we fall into the physical body, we go into reincarnation. At that time, that is the time when our small universe was created. So now we are going back to Li Tian. Dao cultivation is to help us to go back. The goal of Dao cultivation and propagation is to help us going back to Li Tian and to going back to the heaven of truth. So we must going back to the state, return to the state of before the universe was created. But how can we do this? Because as a human being, we are a small universe. How can we return to this small universe was created? How? Don't worry, Lao Tzu will tell us how. How can we do this? Go back to the state of before the universe was created. We need to go back to the state of non-discrimination. Non-discrimination. Do not discriminate. Return to the state of innocence. But to return to the state of innocence, does that mean that we become an infant, become a newborn baby? Because the newborn baby is the most innocent in the world. Yes, a newborn baby is innocent because baby knows nothing. But as an adult, we know everything. We know everything. How can we become innocent? How can we become non-discriminatory? How can we do that? And with regard to this, how can we become 不分别, do not discriminate? We treat what we have known. We try not to discriminate. We try not to calculate. See, we know everything, but with regard to what we have known, we try not to discriminate. For example, we don't discriminate who is in a higher position. We don't discriminate who has great power. So we need to treat him differently. We don't discriminate who is not important, so who can be neglected. To all the people, we treat them equally without discrimination. We treat them equally with the same kindness. And that is in Chinese, we say, 一视同仁. We treat all people with the same kindness, regardless of their appearances, no matter they're beautiful, no matter they are not that beautiful, no matter of their education, they're well educated or poor educated. We try to be non-discriminatory. So the discrimination that we cling to, the discrimination that us create or complicate small universe, the discrimination that us trapped in reincarnation. Because of discrimination, 我们种因了, we have planted a seed, then we will harvest a fruit. 种因就有果报. So with discrimination, then we need to come back to this world again. We trapped in the reincarnation. Okay, so 有名万物之母 Next verse is 有名万物之母. So once the universe came into being, the stage was set for the physical manifestation. Well, I found that it's already 9:20. So may I know how many minutes do I have?
Lecturer Lin may still continue, I suppose.
Sorry, how many minutes do I have?
Maybe 10 more minutes, is it okay?
10 more minutes, okay. So the name is the mother of myriad things. So now we are talking about, let's talk about our small universe. We have heard a Chinese saying that 无极一动生太极, right? Our true nature is 无极. And when the true nature start to move, to act, to have action, then the Taiji was born. Okay, and Taiji is at the very beginning, very initial. Taiji is oneness, is undivided oneness, but it already has something. So it is 万物之母. It is the named. It is the mother of myriad things. There's also a saying, 道生一，一生二，二生三. Tao creates one, one creates two, and two creates three, and three create myriad things. So in our little universe, the same. When we were in the state of 圆佛子, when we were in the state of our original true nature, we were tranquil. And inside of us, we were empty. We were very pure. But when we start to move, like we in 黄某训的世界, in the 10th sermon of Heavenly Mother, it said our Heavenly Mother sent us to earth. But actually, we believe that it is because the 圆佛子 start to trap, start to get lost. So start to 无极一动生太极了. But Taiji is still very close to 无极. But gradually, 圆佛子 get lost. So one divided into two, and then two means duality. So with duality, we start to have perception. We start to be able to give certain situations certain meaning. We start to name something, to describe something, to give something a certain meaning. So we start to 分别取舍. We start to think, oh, I want this, I don't want that. I like this, I don't like that. And that is the beginning of reincarnation. So then, how to cultivate? With cultivation, we need to constantly, without desire, then one observes its essence. So chapter 1, up to now, we know our original nature is Wu. So the origin of our thoughts and mind is Wu. And this Wu is not nothingness. Rather, this Wu is pure, tranquil, it's free of troubles, but it can create wonderful virtues. It can create wonderful wisdom, wonderful courage. So if we want to restore this Wu, this original true nature, we need to be constantly without desire and observe. Actually, observe is not good enough to translate this guan. This guan means guan zhao. Actually, guan zhao has no appropriate English counterparts. Observe is like a look outside, but guan is looking inside. 观其妙. So 常无欲以观其妙. We briefly say 无欲观妙. So after receiving Tao, we know we need to 回光返照. So 回光返照, then we can 观其妙. And this miao, this wonderful true nature, we use this circle to represent. This circle is empty inside, and it's perfect round circle, and it's flawless. Use it to represent, to describe our true nature. If constantly we observe, we 关照 this true nature, then gradually our wandering thoughts will return to the origin of our heart. And then next verse is 常有欲以观其窍. So 无欲观妙，有欲观窍. And this 窍, we just think this 窍is the same words as the first treasure, as our first treasure, the same words 窍. Okay, so 常有欲以观其窍, we translate it as constantly with intentions. One starts from the center of heart, because we are alive. We have a lot of things to do. We have a lot of words to say. We have many things to read. We have many tasks to accomplish. We cannot just sit there and do nothing. So we need to do something. So when we need to do something, where do our intentions come from? Usually people's intentions come from their 5 senses. And 5 senses belong to Western philosophy, and Eastern philosophy, we say 6 senses. 6 senses means sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, plus mind. So no matter 5 senses or 6 senses, if our intentions come from the senses, then we are in trouble, because we tend to like see too much, see something we are not supposed to see, hear too much, eat too much, and say meaningless thing too much. And all this create troubles. But all these are just simple desires. And actually, in reality, in real life, they are very complicated. Different desires interact with each other and result in great trouble. Like people may become very greedy, that they are dying to have something that does not belong to them. And they become so greedy, they have very strong desire to have that something. And once their desire cannot be satisfied, they become so angry. They might hurt themselves, or they might hurt other people. So in real life, it's very complicated, and it's endless reincarnation. So when we are alive, we need to do something. We need to start from our holy gate. Instead of start from our 6 senses, we need to start our holy gate. Because saints and sages taught us, through this gate, we can go up to heaven. And in our day-to-day life, if we let our thoughts and intentions start from here, then we can make right decisions. And one day, of course, many years later, many years later, when we pass away, our soul, if we can exit from this gate, then we can go up to heaven. But the question is, how can we start our intention from this gate? Well, if we can 无欲观妙, if we can frequently, without desires, we 观照 this wonderful essence, then when we need to do something with intentions, we can 有欲观窍, we can start from here. Without doing the 无欲观妙, it's impossible to 有欲观窍, because when making decisions, we will be distracted, we will be influenced by our desires. But how do we, one more minute and I will stop. Okay, how do we 无欲观妙? Because everyone is very busy in our day-to-day life. Our holy teacher taught us. One time I read in a holy revelation, our holy teacher taught us, if we have a very tight schedule, we are very busy, like today we have 10 errands to run, 10 missions to fulfill, then within each mission, there is an interval, okay? However short the interval may be, maybe 3 minutes or even 1 minute, we seize the interval to do the 关照, to let go, 万缘放下, to let go and 关照, to restore our peace, wisdom, and kindness. And then when we need to do something, when we need to start to work, then we can start from here, from our holy gate. Okay, my sharing need to stop. I almost forgot how fast time flies. So I haven't finished chapter 1, and the time is up. If I have made any mistakes, I beg God and Buddha to forgive me, and I hope masters and all the seniors to give me comments. Okay, thank you all very much.